we're finally ready to bring Postgres into our application. So go ahead and create a new file called db.js at the root of the project. We'll touch db.js and then add the following to it. Go into the db.js file and say const client equals require pg. And then say const get database URI equals require ./config. And then require the colors here too, because colors are pretty. Then we'll say const db equals new client. And the connection string is get database URI. And then we will connect. And give it a callback function if there's an error. We will say if error console.error connection error .red and then the error stack. Otherwise, everything went well, and we'll say console.log successfully connected to Postgres DB. And then let's make that blue. Let's also put an exclamation point there because we'll be excited if all goes well. Then we'll just module to exports the DB. Okay, so we're doing a couple things here. Again, we're importing this client from the PG package, along with the database get database URI function we defined in the config file. And again, just the colors for package for a prettier terminal output. Next, we instantiate a new instance of the client using and passing the constructor a single object, an object containing a single key, connection string, which just holds whatever database URI we constructed. Then we call the client's connect method, passing in a callback that logs information to the screen. Cool, and then finally we just export it. Now, all of this comes with the PG package, the Node Postgres package. It really handles most of this business for us. There's all kinds of cool stuff that Node Postgres does, and you could use the pool class here instead, which allows you to make multiple or connections to the database. But for the time being, we're going to keep it super simple, super straightforward. And we could do all kinds of really cool stuff. Like we could instead create like a custom Postgres error class and export certain particular methods that use this db.query, for instance, and then centralize all that into this db file. But our current setup is totally fine for the time being, and we're not going to do any of that fancy stuff until we actually need it. So how do we check that this is working and this is really connecting to our database? Well, let's go ahead and import our new DB into the user model where we'll be using it. Let's go in here and we'll say const db equals require ... /db. And then let's go ahead and start our server. And we will see, oh, we don't want to get rid of that in the config. We don't want that process.env in there anymore, polluting our terminal. Okay, we don't see any message here, which means that this didn't get run. And the reason for that is because, well, we didn't import our users model anywhere. We need to import it in the routes where it's actually going to get used. So let's say const user equals require ... /models/user. Let's save it again. And we still don't see anything. And the reason for that is because we haven't imported our router anywhere or used it at all. So let's go ahead and import that into our server.js and attach the router to our app. So we'll come in here, we'll say const, or let's say auth routes equals require ... /routes/auth. And then we will say app.use, and we'll send them at the auth endpoint, and we'll say auth routes. And we will save this, and now hopefully, fantastic, successfully connected to Postgres DB. And just like that, we have integrated Postgres into our application. Now, if you have a red error stack trace or you don't see anything in the terminal, you should probably stop this video here and do a little bit of debugging. The things I always look out for first are A, is the Postgres server running? You can see here mine is running. I can stop it since I'm using postgres.app. Can I connect to it with PSQL, for instance? That's another good one to check in. Can I connect to it with PSQL? Cool, I can, so I know that it's running. Am I accessing it on the correct port? What are some other good ones? Are my username and password correct? Is the name of the database correct? A good way to check if the username and password is correct is just to try to connect using the proper credentials with PSQL. So I'm just entering PSQL like this, but you can connect directly to a database with PSQL. You can say something like this, PSQL, and then pass in all of the database parameters straight into the connection command. So we can say --host equals localhost, for instance, --port equals 5432, --username equals, I don't know, let's actually put a wrong one in here, me, --db name equals wedding registration, and then we'll do --password so that it asks for our password. All the --password does is just make sure that we need to ask for our password. And so if I enter this and I type in some password, it'll say, oh, could not connect to server fatal. Role me does not exist. So that username is not real. Now, if I do that same thing, but with the proper credentials, with just the Postgres name, and I honestly don't think this requires a password. I'm going to enter in some gibberish here. And by the way, when you type into the password field here, nothing will show up, but it is typing stuff. So if I enter this, yeah, okay, cool. That was the wrong password, but it didn't matter. Everything worked. So if you can do this, you'll know that things are working for you. Again, if any of this doesn't work for you, do some troubleshooting, see what comes from it. Don't be afraid to Google your errors or search Stack Overflow, as that can often be pretty fruitful, especially with Postgres. But since things seem to be working on this end, let's go ahead and commit our changes. Let's do the git status. Cool, all looks good. Git add, git commit, connected API to Postgres. And let's start implementing our user authentication logic.